The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Dr. Grace Vuoto, she is the executive director, the president of the Edmund Burke Institute for American Renewal based in Washington, D.C. She is also the editor of Politics and Culture section of the World Tribune. She is also the host of American Heartland with Dr. Grace, and she's a dear friend of mine. Dr. Grace, thank you so much for being on Freedom Friday today. You wrote an amazing article that I have spread all over the Internet today on World Tribune. You wrote it today, questioning the details and the facts surrounding the death of Miss Fuddy, who was the Department of Health Director for Hawaii, who just mysteriously died in a plane crash just days after the announcement that big news was coming out of the Arpaio Zulu camp. I mean, talk to us about all of that.
Well, you know, the article is called The Strange Death of Loretta Fuddy, and it is absolutely astonishing when you look at what happened. There were 9 people on a plane who were flying. They had just taken off from an island in Hawaii, and within minutes, the pilot heard a bang, and the engine suddenly went dead. Now, in the normal course of events, when that happens, the plane crashes and everybody on board dies.
Right.
However, as it turns out, this pilot had 14 years. He was a pilot since he was 14 years old, and he had so much experience flying glider planes. So he was able to glide the plane onto the water. Basically, it was a crash landing on water, a very successful one.
Yeah.
So you might say that at that moment, all of those 9 passengers escaped death. That would be the first time they escaped death because they managed to land, and nobody on board at that point had suffered any life-threatening injuries.
Right.
Then, as you know, Carl, the thing that usually happens is water comes flooding into the plane, and people get trapped in the plane and they drown.
Right.
And miraculously, again, everybody got off the plane.
Right.
And at that point, all the eyewitnesses said everybody was fine. Nobody was panicking, and nobody was in distress. Now, Carl, usually what happens, if you've survived death, basically you've avoided death twice in one day, what is the risk here? You have now 9 people floating in water. The water is choppy. Everybody has a life vest except for the pilot, because he gave his to one of the passengers. They're hanging on for dear life, and they're hoping that somehow, some way, they will be rescued. The pilot had been able to make some mayday calls, but even then, how quickly would they be found, and would they be found before the sun sets? And you know, if the sun sets, then the search becomes really difficult, and it's really hard to survive under those conditions.
Right.
But, again, another intervention. As it so happened, there was a man, his name is Josh Lang, a pilot. He was with his girlfriend, and they were on a leisure trip. And they were contacted by the tower in Molokai, and they were asked, have you heard any distress signals? Now, check this out. Check what a hero this man is, because, you know, he might have said, look, I heard something but faintly, and there's nothing much I can do. Instead, he decided to circle back and see if he could see anything. And lo and behold, he saw the tail of the plane. The plane is now sinking as the 9 people are surrounding it, trying to survive. And he actually located those passengers. So he and his girlfriend fly to the airport in Kalaupapa. They try to get help. They really can't find anybody. And then it occurs to him that if he just flies back to where the people are, it'll be easier for the Coast Guard to locate them so they can locate the whole group before sunset. And he does that, and he hovers on top of them so that they all remain calm. I mean, amazing man here.
Yeah.
So we have 2 heroes in this story already. It's Clyde Kawasaki, the pilot, the original pilot, and then this Mr. Josh Lang. So at this point, everybody's fine, and there is one Army veteran. He's a 7-year-old Army veteran. His name is Mr. Holstein. He decides that he's going to try to swim to shore to get help. So he starts swimming to shore, and amazingly, he makes it. But in the meantime, the Coast Guard arrives, and all the passengers are being pulled out of the water.
Right.
So for most of these people, they have avoided death 3 times in one day.
Yeah.
There was 3 possible ways they would have died, and each time something intervened.
Yeah, and don't forget sharks. So there's 4 times.
Yeah, I mean, you could go on and on, right?
Yeah.
And And suddenly, so everybody's being pulled out. It looks like everybody's fine. And, you know, everybody thinks, I mean, people had seen the deputy of Miss Lara Fuddy. His name is Keith Yamamoto.
Right.
He had helped Miss Fuddy put on her life vest. She disembarked from the plane. She was fine. All the witnesses had said that she was floating in the water like everybody else, not crying out in distress. And everybody described the scene as extremely calm. And in fact, the audience that is interested in this, you can actually see there's somebody on board who took pictures as the plane is sinking in the water and as the people are disembarking.
He actually took
20 seconds of footage of water flooding into the plane. It's unbelievable that somebody would think to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say he actually took video footage. You said that, so it's amazing. I saw it today.
Yeah, so you see at that point that the waters are you know, they're a little choppy, but they're calm enough to survive in, you know, like you wouldn't immediately drown under those conditions.
Right.
So then all of a sudden, it appears that one of the Coast Guards finds Miss Fuddy, and when he finds her, she has no pulse. She died.
Yeah.
And nobody understands how it happened. When the pilot, Clyde Kawasaki, gave a press conference, he said that when they told him that she died, you know, I didn't understand how it could happen. I don't understand how it could happen.
Right.
When the man had died, he said, I don't understand how that happened. How did it happen?
Right.
She was fine and she was not in distress. And we have another witness, a reverend. He says that Mr. Yamamoto told him that he was holding her hand and suddenly she let go and just died.
Yeah.
So obviously this is strange because now we don't know what the precise cause of death is. If she had been injured during the landing, she would have indicated it to somebody. She would have said so. She would have cried out. If something was bothering her, it was likely she would have cried out at some point.
Right.
But there was it, you know. So basically, everybody that witnessed it said we all got out, we all made it safe and sound, and we don't understand why. By the time the Coast Guard located her, she had passed.
Right.
So an autopsy has been ordered, and basically, there's obviously some other cause of death. Yeah. And what I basically say in my piece is, how many times does death come after one person in one day?
Right.
What's that other cause? How could there be another cause all on the same day?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, Dr. Grace, and I've got a caller that wants to talk to you and me about this, and I'm going to bring him on, but it could be strictly coincidental. But your article mentions this, and I don't know if it's the same words I'm going to use, but it's so amazingly interesting and weird and strange that the death of this very important person. Now, Zullo has already said she is not key to the evidence they're going to bring forward, but she was key in the whole Obama birth certificate scandal and debacle. And many people believe that she holds the key to how all of that birth certificate forgery took place. And right after Arpaio and Zullo make national announcements that they're bringing forward information that's universe-shattering, this airplane crash takes place, and she's the only person that dies. I mean, it's just weird.
Well, what I do say in my piece is that Lieutenant Zullo filed that brief in the Alabama Supreme Court,
right,
stating that he had forensic evidence that the certificate is a forgery.
Right. That
was a known fact. And 8 months later, one of the key people that authenticated the certificate dies, but doesn't just die out of a known illness, or just dies under strange circumstances.
Right. Let me bring on this caller, okay? Dave,
okay.
Thank you so much for being a part of Freedom Friday today. You have a question for Dr. Grace about the Zullo Fuddy thing.
Hello. Hey, how's it going?
Dave?
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello?
Speak up, Dave. You're on the air live.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. Hold on one second. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. I was just actually, my question was actually for you, Carl.
Okay. Lay it on me.
You just said a couple minutes ago. You just said if the information that Zulu has and they have is released, you said he's gone. It sounds like you know what some of this information is.
Yes, I do know what the information is.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Just give me your personal opinion. How do they weasel out of this? Is there any way out of this for him? How do you see how they get out of it?
Well, Dave, that's an excellent question, and I don't know that I can answer that without giving away some of the things that Arpaio and Zullo know. I can just say to you that in my little feeble, humble mind, I don't know how he can weasel out of it. Because, as Zullo has said, it is universe-shattering. And even if the American media tries to ignore it, the international media won't. This is so huge and so big, and it goes so directly to who we are as a nation and our impact upon the world. And he's got hard copy evidence of the activities, criminal and otherwise, unconstitutional, etc. So I don't think they can weasel out of it, Dave. I mean, I'm just saying that again. If there's something spiritual behind all of this, then we might see some miraculous spiritual things take place that would cause the weaseling to happen. But anyway, that's all I can say, Dave. And I appreciate you listening, and thank you for your call. Dr. Grace, I know that you probably don't want to comment too much on that, but let's get back to your article. Don't you? I mean, you do find it a little odd of the timing of all of this, and that she's the one. I mean, she's the one that dies. It's amazing, isn't it?
Well, it's absolutely amazing, and there's also something else that's really amazing. Another fact that's just really striking. There's only one airline that services that island, and the CEO of the airline has said that in 20 years there has never been a fatality. So when you add all of these facts together and you consider that 8 passengers made it out alive and there's never been a fatality, Miss Fuddy has got to have the worst luck in the history of the world. I
know. I mean, and as you so brilliantly pointed out, they all escaped death at least 3 times, and I kind of joked when I said sharks, but I mean, that's a very real possibility of the waters of Hawaii, especially 8 or 9 people flopping around out there in the middle for hours. I mean, so 4 times they've cheated death. And there's never been a fatality. I mean, it's just, and she just happens to be the one that just slips away and dies. And she just happens to be the one who is the one person in the world who could probably tell everything about how the whole Obama birth certificate debacle took place. But she's gone now.
She's gone now, and we're still waiting for the results of the autopsy. That's another, I think, a bit of a strange fact.
Yeah.
You have a woman that dies under these circumstances. It's almost 30 days. Oh, it is 30 days. Today is 30 days. And we still don't have any official results about what the precise cause of death is.
Yeah.
What exactly happened?
Yeah.
Did she suffer a heart attack? Some people have said to me, look, isn't it possible that, look, it's a really stressful situation. Her heart was pounding.
Yeah, I thought of that.
She was under tremendous anxiety. Maybe she suffered a heart attack.
Right, I thought of that.
Maybe they're still making up the official narrative.
Yeah.
We don't know. That's why we're really looking forward to getting that autopsy report and taking a good look at it. But you've got to consider this. There were other people in her age bracket.
Right.
In that water. So she wasn't the only one. She was 65.
Right.
You had the 70-year-old veteran that managed to survive it no problem. And you had others, the veteran and the Reverend, too, was also elderly. So that's another fact, here. People might say, well, maybe she was the one of the weaker ones, physically weaker, a little bit older, and maybe that's why she succumbed to the stress and the others didn't.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Grace, listen, I hear the music. I've got to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue this and more. I've got more questions for you. I'm going to talk to you about Chris Christie and Rob Gates and et cetera, okay? We'll be back in just a moment. Folks, you're listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallows. Dr. Grace is my guest this afternoon. You don't want to miss this.
Do you own a business, a restaurant, or retail?
And welcome back, Dr. Grace. Listen, folks, we appreciate you hanging on during the break. Dr. Grace is my guest this afternoon. Dr. Grace Vuoto, the editor of the Politics and Culture section of the World Tribune, and also the host of the American Heartland with Dr. Grace. Dr. Grace, listen, let's finish up. We've got Mickey. Did Mickey want to talk about the Fuddy thing? Okay, we've got a caller, Dr. Grace. Is that okay? We'll bring him on?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Hold on just a moment, see if I can work these brand new phones. Mickey, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Hi.
Mickey, you want to talk to Dr. Grace about the Fuddy death. Go ahead.
Yes, very astute, all of the things, that you said. The Blaze ran this, and the title was, the birthers are going nuts over this new video that's out, and of course they're going kind of nuts, putting it all out there, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, in one of the stills that they have on the blaze, there's a person in the water with his life vest on, and he's wearing a cap that says Marshall. I can't read the top of it, but it's Marshall, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, but aren't the Marshalls federal? And the reason that I'm bringing it up was because when I was in Hawaii in 2012, about mid-2012 of last year, I was there with Orly Tates, and I was trying to get in to see Fuddy, and I had been calling ahead trying to, get an appointment or find out when she might be available. But, of course, she never returns calls or do anything, and so I went there in person, and she's in the main part of the Department of Health building, and that's where the marriage licenses are applied for. And I went in there, and the sheriff's department is the one that I guess is the receptionist there.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in there, and and he called up and said, and then told me, he says, well, she's not there, she's not available.
Yeah.
So I made it, clear to everybody that was listening in there that I, have important things to talk to her about, and that she needed to return phone calls.
Yeah.
Now
what's your question for Dr. Grace, Mickey?
My question was if you could look into that about. Oh, you mentioned about it's the only airport, and actually it's not. The main airport is on the there's a main airport that services the island, but on Kalapapa, which is the former leper colony, you can only get there, by mule or to fly.
No, it's the only airline. The only airline.
Oh, airline.
Not the only
okay.
the airline, and in its 20-year history, that airline has not had a fatality. So the CEO made that statement because obviously he wanted to defend the integrity of his airline.
Right.
Right.
So he wanted to get that fact out there.
Okay. Well, I misunderstood, so I just wanted to make that note because I thought you said the only airport.
Regarding your other comment, the comment about looking at the pictures and trying to decipher who was on board and all of that, we need everybody. Everybody has various kinds of expertise. One of the things that I've discovered in my years as a journalist is usually when something is mysterious, it takes multiple different kinds of expertise to come together. And so what I hope my column does is it asks the question. It says, this is just strange.
Right.
And there's going to be a lot of people out there with various skills that I don't have that are going to see things, that are going to hopefully speak. We don't know what happened, and we don't know what Loretta Fuddy did or did not do. One of the things that I did think it was important to point out in my article is that Loretta Fuddy was known as a woman of very deep faith. She was a practicing Catholic. She was part of the choir.
Yeah, I saw that.
She was loved by her church family. And she, by all accounts, she was perceived as a woman of integrity.
Right.
So we don't know what Loretta Fuddy did or didn't do. Maybe it's something that she saw or didn't see. At this point, we don't know.
That's right.
All that we know is that she certified that certificate. She's the only one that has. And if you think about the accident, had the plane crashed, it would not just be her that would have died, but also her deputy, number 1 and number 2,
right,
at the Department of Health. Not just one, but 2 in one crash.
Right. Right. No, it is amazing, and your article did point out all of those things, and I thought the article was very, very well done. And you're right. I think when this autopsy comes out, that's going to be interesting. And our caller, Mickey, I do know she's from Oklahoma. She listens out of Oklahoma, and I think she was born and raised in Hawaii, if I'm not mistaken. That's why she had that information, but she did misunderstand you. Well, Dr. Grace, listen, we've only got about 20 seconds left. Do you want to tell folks where they can find you and how they can find your articles and listen to your show?
You can find the article at worldtribune.com, and you will see it. It's called The Strange Death of Loretta Fuddy, and we need everybody's help and everybody's expertise. If you know something or you see something or you make a connection that I haven't made, Let it be known, because I am personally haunted by the death of this woman. This story gives me goosebumps. I think something's amiss, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
Okay, good deal. And I appreciate that. And we're going to have you back. I know we wanted to talk about so much more, but this story is fascinating. Thank you, Dr. Grace.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.